Hey, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us for Access City Council. I'm your host, City of Las Vegas Communications Director David Riggleman. Coming up on this show, state and local leaders come together to address the housing crisis and shortage in Las Vegas. And Ward 1 welcomes a new staff member to the team. Here to talk about these topics and a whole lot more is the councilman who represents Ward 1. You know who it is. Mr. Brian Knutson. Welcome back.
I am happy to be here.
How's it going? Happy July.
I am happy to be here. Happy July. I'm looking forward to September, but I'm happy to be here.
That's right. A little warm right now. A little warm. It's like, you know, it always comes as a surprise, even though you and I have lived here many years, and it's like, is it really 110 out there? It is. So.
We have to talk about it in every conversation we have, how hot it is.
Exactly. Part of the fabric of our lives here. So we've got a great show. We're going to introduce your new staff member a little bit later on. In the meantime, though, you know Ward 1 really well. It's your stomping ground. But for those of you out there not exactly sure where Ward 1 is located, well, we're going to show you right here on the map. It's kind of in the center of all things. Right where that 1 is, encompasses really everything just west of the downtown, runs along kind of the south side of US 95, and then turns up to the north, runs all the way up to Cheyenne now. So it expanded a lot to the west. We redistricted back in the end of last year, exactly, and your ward kind of moved to the west. You're clear out to Lake Mead and Cheyenne and Lake Mead and Buffalo. You come right up to that area now.
It looks like a reindeer. If you look at the picture, that's how I think of it. The reindeer or the llama.
Exactly, exactly. So if you live in that area, work in that area, then you are in Ward 1. You're represented by Councilman Brian Knutson. And, you know, you are someone who tends not to toot your own horn, but I felt like I wanted to start the show with this. You got a very significant award from the Silver State Equality Award from this organization. This is an organization that really advocates for the rights of the LGBTQ community. And look at you, you were designated as one of their honorees this year. Congratulations.
I was very grateful and honored, and I don't particularly like attention. I mean, most people know that about me. I've known Andre Wade, who's the executive director. He definitely knows that I don't like attention. And so I'm very grateful and honored to have the award. I think for me, it's important for other folks like me, so other gay men, other lesbian women, other people who identify as queer to see that anything is possible. And so I will do everything in my power to make sure that people know that they have a lifetime of opportunities ahead of them. And it's, I think, my responsibility, given the privilege and opportunities I've been given, to demonstrate that whatever it is that you want to be, you can have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah. Well, and congratulations. That is a big deal, big honor. And I know to get you to agree to accept it was always a big, because you are someone who doesn't like attention.
I don't.
But I think I understand why you did it. I think it helped illustrate the point of all the things you just articulately said, is that these kinds of things, really anyone can whatever their persuasion, can achieve what they want in life.
If you're a child out there and you want to be something, just work hard. You can be anything you want to be.
Exactly.
Nothing should get in your way.
Exactly. Well, congratulations on your honor. A big deal. And Councilman, I think this was really important to you. You've been an advocate on another issue, and that is housing. I think anyone right now who pays rent, is trying to buy a home, has figured out that the housing situation has become very dire, especially for people who are making a good income, but maybe not a six-figure income. You're having a hard time trying to find a place that's affordable to live. It's been scary.
Yeah, and we talk about this a lot on this show in particular, and I talk about it almost everywhere I go, because it really is quite a serious issue, and it's the issue of our time right now. And so just a couple of examples for those watching, because immediately, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, it doesn't matter how you think about government, your first thought about affordable housing is fear. And that's true in every meeting I go to. People are definitely afraid of a housing complex going right next to where they bought and lived in their home for years. And so what I want to tell people is this is about teachers and nurses and medical students, as I talk to medical students. A couple of examples is we held a forum with medical students,
dental
students.
You had the Nevada Housing Coalition Policy Forum that you were a part of. That was back on June 28th.
And I do that because I had a nursing student come up and say that she's couch surfing right now, trying to get through school because she can't afford rent. I had another individual, a constituent, who said his father is 80 years old on fixed income, is being priced out of his apartment. Where can he go? And so this isn't a small segment of our population. This is a very large segment. It's anyone making under $100,000 a year.
Exactly.
Their rents are getting out of control, and there really isn't another place for them to go.
Well, and Councilman, you talked about this too. You mentioned to me it's teachers as well, paramedics, people. Cops, exactly. Your local barista.
Yeah.
All people making good money. They're just not making a substantial amount of money, but they can't find an affordable place to live.
A four-year Metro officer is going to make about $58,000 a year, which prices them out of our market. And so the cops that I've been in, there are some who still live at home with their parents because they just can't afford to live here. Yeah. That's not a community that they deserve.
Right.
We have a responsibility to build out our community so that it's affordable for everyone.
Exactly right. And here's the thing, at the end of the day, this is our service industry that we're talking about. If they don't have a place to live, then what happens to our service industry here in Las Vegas? It becomes a real problem.
That's exactly it. And I want people to understand that different and varying types of affordable housing. So the housing project that we just talked about as a planning commission, and we'll talk about as a city council, is 240 units in the far northwest. It received an enormous amount of opposition. The salary range to go into an apartment there is between $40,000 and $55,000.
Yeah. So good income.
That's what a good percentage of our population makes. We have to be able to provide places like that for people in our community.
Yeah. And Councilman, I think too, what's so important for people to understand is just the misconception. I would probably talk about that a little bit more. The misconception of what affordable housing means. I think people have this image that it means it's going to be the projects. Yeah. Not the case at all. It's
all different kinds. And so we have housing needs for people who are struggling with homelessness right now. That doesn't mean that's every single project that comes before a governing body. We have different needs within our community. We have to be able to talk about it. And so a lot of the projects, we have over 1,000 units going into Ward 1 right now, over 1,000. Right. We have some market rate apartments for seniors. We have some affordable units for multifamily and seniors. We're going to have that throughout the valley because we're about 50,000 units short. So to get back to the point, the Housing Coalition was a group of local and state leaders and nonprofit leaders to develop strategies at the state and local level so that we can be effective. And that's, at the end of the day, we just want to make sure that everybody has access to the quality of life they deserve.
Councilman, what were some of the takeaways? What were some of the nuggets that came out of that you thought were promising?
So I think about it, there's a couple of things that are necessary. One is land. And so we're working closely with our counterparts in the county and the state to make sure there's available land. The second part is financing. How do we provide financing? And that both comes in terms of federal and state financing, but also incentives. And so we're going to be talking here at the City of Las Vegas about incentives for how do you allow for complexes to be built, because those developers need to make a profit too. We're an economically driven society. And some of the other strategies, everyone talks about rent control. We talked about technology to help people get to the right apartment at the right time. Those are all things that we need to talk about more. I know the county's having a conversation around inclusionary zoning. The state's probably going to talk about rent control issues. I think it's healthy to talk about all of it. We have to figure out as a community what's right for us right now. Yep. And at the City of Las Vegas, I'm really happy that in the coming weeks to month, we're going to be introducing an ordinance that allows for those incentives for development, that allows for more density, because that's what developers need. And I think that's ultimately what our community needs as well.
All right. Well, you're making good progress, and you obviously know this subject very, very well. Another subject near and dear to you, you posted this on Facebook. You said Team Knutson hosted some of our Valley's strongest hunger relief allies for a summit on hunger. That kind of goes hand in hand with the housing situation. Inflation has taken off so much now that people are having a hard time feeding themselves and their families. It's kind of a hard to believe situation.
Last I looked, we have about, I think it's 68% of children who are on free and reduced school lunch within the Clark County School District. Doreen Stonebarger from my office is really the expert on food, and she's also the expert on housing. I have to figure out what I'm the expert in. I can talk about all of it.
You got good people around you.
I got good people around me. But Doreen convened the group. It's local and state and nonprofit leaders to talk about how we can be more efficient with the distribution of food, with the purchasing of food. That report is going to the governor's Council on Food Security, which Dorian is a part of, and then it ultimately gets sent to the White House to talk about nationally how do we create more food, purchase more food, distribute more food to people who need it.
Yeah.
So Dorian really takes the credit for that, but I'm proud of the fact that I can assemble a good team.
Yeah, Dorian is awesome, no question about it. Councilman, too, I think the impressive thing to me is that when you get all of these relief agencies working together, you're going to get better coordination so that there's not so much duplication of effort. Everybody's out trying to do the same thing, and if you spread the wealth, it's like, well, we'll take care of this, and you take care of that, and so on. Everyone becomes more efficient, and then the food gets distributed more quickly and more evenly.
That's it. And generally, everybody has an idea. It's figuring out which ideas are implementable, and then quickly moving forward on those.
Yeah. Some of the takeaways on that, things that you think are promising that came out of some of those discussions that resonated with you.
So a couple of items that were really, I think, worth talking about more. There's a lot of ideas. The ones that I probably will push forward is this idea of a state of emergency around poverty. So when you have a state of emergency, it gives the elected officials significantly more authority to move quickly. Poverty tends to be that issue of emergency right now at this point in time.
Sure.
And so if we were to declare a state of emergency around poverty, it gives the governing boards and the top local officials, state officials, to make decisions very quickly. Yeah. And it helps move that purchasing process a little bit faster. And I think that's a really interesting idea to think through, is how do we define emergencies? I think I could equally articulate that poverty is an emergency right now.
Well, sure, you got to feed your family, you've got to feed yourself, you've got to have a place to live. And those aren't going to wait till next week or next month. You need to address those issues now.
Yeah.
So.
And you can see it driving around Las Vegas and Henderson and North Las Vegas in the county, that you can see the emergency and the potential of that emergency getting much, much, much worse. So we need to get to it now.
All right. And you were on it, and along with Dorian. That's great. Councilman, we celebrated a big anniversary here at the City of Las Vegas. Our Department of Public Safety celebrated 40 years, and they also have a brand new chief. Jason Potts just joined the city as well.
It's a great department. I've done a number of ride-alongs. I still do ride-alongs all the time. I appreciate the boots on the ground thinking. And it helps me to understand what's actually going on. So we have great officers in the Marshal unit, in the Corrections unit, Animal Control, all of it, to dispatchers. Everybody over in DPS should be really aware of how great they are and how well they serve the city.
Yeah. It used to be our Department of Detention and Enforcement. When you worked at the city back in the day, it was D&E. They became the Department of Public Safety here a few years ago. Still, the department, 40 years. Councilman, you hit on that. It's our Marshals unit, it's our corrections officers, Animal Control, and people sometimes get a little confused. Well, what do the Marshals do versus what does Metro do? Well, Metro obviously is the primary police department for the city, but our Marshals, their responsibility is to patrol and protect our parks and city facilities.
Yes.
So that's their primary function.
Yes.
And they also assist down on Fremont Street. There's a contingent of Metro and our Marshals on Fremont to keep things safe down there as well.
That's right. And they help with all of the meetings here at the city.
Yeah.
If you come in, hopefully you do come in and talk at a city council meeting, you'll see a few marshals standing there making sure that everyone's safe.
In the blue uniforms, exactly. And they have a new chief, Jason Potts, comes to us from California. And boy, really impressive law enforcement background. That's Jason talking with you there in the blue tie. And lucky to get him. He's somebody who's, again, got a very impressive resume. And this is his first job as a chief, but plenty of experience in a variety of capacities.
And he was just appointed in our last council meeting.
Exactly.
July. When was it?
It was in June.
It was like 3 weeks ago. Yeah,
it was in
end of June.
Yeah, because we didn't have a meeting the first weekend of July because of the 4th. And then we've got a new fire chief that is also joining the city as well.
I'm meeting him for the first time on Wednesday morning. He has an impressive resume, and I was in D.C. actually talking about a lot of the issues that we're talking about right now on Monday and Tuesday of last week, and there was folks in the conference in D.C. who knew him and said he's a good steal. And so I'm excited to meet him and see him sworn in and get to work.
I like that. Well, you mentioned ride-along earlier, and you posted this on Facebook, very timely. You said, thank you to interim president of Las Vegas Fire and Rescue's Union, James Suarez, for having me ride along to learn more about the day-to-day of firefighters and the issues facing our city. And, those ride-alongs, you never quite know what you're going to encounter on those, do you, Councilman?
We took 3 patients. I always take away something. We took 3 patients to the ER. One was, I consider someone who was lonely, but came up with some symptoms. That's my guess. The second person was a tourist from out of state, and he overheated and needed to rehydrate. And the third person was an individual who was homeless, who had some very good ideas about how we could do a better job with the homeless population here. But he had a headache.
Some direct feedback.
He had a headache and was overheated because of the environment we live in. And so 3 cases. We went to Valley Hospital, went to UMC Hospital twice, and so it was really good to see what's happening and some of the things that we do need to work on in our community.
Councilman, I think people are surprised. Our fire department, Las Vegas Fire and Rescue, the vast majority of their calls are medical runs.
Like over 90 to 95%.
Yeah. And so you get a little bit of everything.
But I was at Station 1, and they were saying there's been a lot of fires lately. We've all seen that in the downtown
we have in the
core
downtown,
in particular.
Yeah.
So they've been going to fires pretty regularly.
Yeah.
But one thing that I do want to say is I did not get a single text, email, or call on July 4th, not one. And this is the first out of 3 years.
Wow.
I usually get overwhelmed with calls. This July 4th, I did not get any.
Because of fireworks.
Kudos to Metropolitan Police Department and our Fire and Rescue Department, because they joined forces.
They did.
And went out and got it before it became an issue.
They did. They had a different strategy this year. Not going to go into what it was, but it obviously was very effective.
It worked.
It did. It did. And I in my direct neighborhood, not as bad as it was in the past. In fact, it was very good. But in the neighborhoods around us, it went on for a long time. So
my barometer was I didn't get calls, texts, or emails.
Yeah,
so,
good for you.
And my phone was working.
Unlike last year.
I was ready for it. But the last 2 years have been pretty bad.
Yeah.
So we did better. We'll get better next year, too.
I like that. Well, that's very good. Congratulations on that. Good to hear. And then good for you for doing the ride along. You get with the boots on the ground, folks, quite often. Councilman, I love this too. You posted this on Facebook. You said historic signs are in the process of being placed in a few neighborhoods in Ward 1, and it's exciting to see their progress. Now, you and I have talked about this before on the show. For example, there's a place that one of the signs is going to go.
Yep. This is somewhat controversial in the 4 neighborhoods that it affects in the downtown core. The purpose is traffic mitigation. So almost all of Rancho between 95 and Sahara will be under construction for a long period of time. And the neighbors are mostly concerned about cut-through traffic. And so this is our attempt to mitigate the cut-through traffic. And everybody has different opinions and ideas about it. They're going to get the signs, and then when we're done with construction, we'll evaluate to see if it's the right fit anymore.
Right. I think, Councilman, you were saying that some people thought when it said historic McNeil neighborhood, that they thought that meant it was going to be designated as an historic neighborhood where they couldn't modify their home, paint anything. Not the case at all. It's just
the neighborhoods are pretty historic, but this has no indication to the city one way or another. It's just a nice way of saying these are old neighborhoods. Be careful.
Right, exactly. It's not unlike placing something on the National Registry of Historic Places. Different thing altogether. So, cool. Look for the signs. You'll help know what the neighborhoods are called. It's like, oh, this is the McNeil area. I've heard about it. We didn't know exactly where
Everybody
it was.
who grew up in Las Vegas knows these neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Everybody. And most people who've been here longer than 30 years probably grew up in the neighborhood. So they're familiar.
All right. Sounds good, Councilman. And then we want to tell everybody, too, this is really exciting. It's not in Ward 1, but you have a lot of the area right up to the downtown. And the Plaza made a huge announcement. This is a big deal. This was back on June 14th. They've got some big renovation plans coming.
So much that we are having a hard time remembering. So we got the pink box donuts going in.
Yeah.
We got the expansion of Oscars onto the outside patio.
Mm-hmm. There's going to be a carousel bar.
Carousel bar.
Right there in the porte-cochere there as you come in. That's going to be cool.
And then on the inside, a portion of the casino is going smoke-free.
Smoke-free.
So we got 4 major changes to
That's the
plaza.
carousel bar right there, Councilman. I mean, that's going to be pretty impressive.
Downtown is the place to be.
Yeah.
It's very exciting. And then Jonathan Jossel is the guy responsible for the plaza. He's done an amazing job, and envisioning what the future of the plaza will be is very exciting.
That was the last picture you saw. There was the rendition of the expansion of the patio area around Oscar's restaurant. And it's exciting because the Cirque obviously is brand new, and now the Plaza just keeps upping their game. Golden Nugget over the years has made a lot of changes, as well as the other properties downtown. And so, yeah, it's like you're right, Councilman. Downtown is definitely a hot place. Look at you and Councilman Creer there getting your picture.
And we went out to lunch right after that.
That's a lot of good places
to
to
go
eat.
in the plaza. It was delicious.
Exactly. A lot of great places to eat down there. So come check it out if you haven't been down here in a while. So, well, Councilman, I'm going to tell everybody out there we need to take a short break. But when we return, we introduce you to the newest member of the Ward 1 team. That's next. So please stay with us.
Our story was begun by someone else. Our story was often shaped by generations before them. Our story was forged and maybe even defined by the experiences of our childhood. But it doesn't need to be. You can be the author. Learn how at numberstory.org.
Unlike other health concerns, mental illness is not always easy to see.
DEPR.
Mental illness doesn't show up on a scale.
Bipolar?
Sorting out a mental health concern takes professional diagnosis and treatment.
Anxiety. I thought so.
If you or a loved one has a mental health concern, don't go it alone. For 24-hour free and confidential information and treatment referral, call 1-800-662-HELP. Learn more at samhsa.gov/support.
Welcome back, everyone. April St. James has joined the Ward 1 team. She'll be helping with all the Ward 1 initiatives and plans. She joins the city after working for over 3 years in Senator Jackie Rosen's office. She's also served as an executive legislative assistant at the Nevada State Legislature. April, welcome to the city. Welcome to the show. And Councilman, I know you love doing this. You love to put names with faces for people that maybe contact the office. They'll know that they'll be reaching out to April.
That's exactly it. And you know, I've always appreciated surrounding myself with people who are smarter than me. So that is the idea.
Once again, you've done it.
Here I've done it. I think there's a lot of opportunity for coordination between the city, county, state, federal level. And April came to the office with a lot of that experience. And so I'm really excited to help her get to know the city, and then for her to help us understand state and federal government and how we can better connect to provide services for our community. So really grateful that she decided to come on board.
That's something you've really worked hard at since you've been an elected official, is connecting with the other, not only jurisdictions, but also the different layers of government, whether it be state or federal too.
Yes.
So
it's critical.
Well, April, welcome aboard. Again,
you.
we love to be able to let the viewers know when they contact you. Obviously, they either talk to Dorian or to Maria or now to you.
Yeah.
And so you come with a lot of experience. Councilman saying your state and federal experience is going to come in really helpful, I think, in the job that you're coming into, won't it?
Yeah, exactly. Previously, I worked, at Senator Rosen's office, and a large part of my job was, focusing on items like healthcare, mental health, homelessness, seniors, and connecting people to services. Yeah. And so that's kind of one of my favorite things to do, is be of help to people. And so what better way than to serve in the local community. And as a Ward 1 resident, it was a perfect match to make the transition to Councilman Knudsen's office.
Well, so, April, you're going to fit in perfect around here, because connecting people with services, oftentimes they're not even city services, but services in general, is such a critical part of the job. So you're going to be having to do that to help people right in this local community too. And that's where I think that's where local government really is the most valuable. It's connecting people at the local level to the things that they need. So, well, tell us a little bit about your background. Are you from Las Vegas?
Nope, I'm one of those California transplants, but I have been here since 2015. Wow. I had originally moved here, but up in the Reno area for the presidential races during that time, and thereafter I went and worked at the Nevada State Legislature for Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod, and then I was scooped up in 2019 by Senator Rosen's office and moved down to Las Vegas at that time. So I've been here for a good number of years. I've gotten used to the heat and the monsoon rains that we sometimes get, and learn to enjoy them.
Yeah, exactly. It's you're an old veteran of Las Vegas. If you can survive your first summer here, then all is good. Councilman and April, when people contact the office, if they've got an issue, what are the things that are most helpful that they can tell you so that it gives you guys kind of a head start on trying to figure out how to solve the problem?
I appreciate it for the most of the people. I give out my cell phone number, so I like texting. It's just because I have my kids usually, and so texting just works really well because I cut and paste it and we send it in an email, and we have an amazing city team who respond. It's details, it's addresses, pictures help. And it's not being afraid to reach out and say something. So for everybody that reaches out, there are some complaints that are not so appropriate, and I can go into more details when we're off camera. And then there are some complaints that are like they're trying to make their neighborhood better, they're trying to make the community better. If it's a code enforcement issue or if it's a business that's not acting appropriately, text, call, email. Be specific about the details, and then the city is really great. Every department's really great. We just pass it along, and they respond to it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I always tell everyone in the ward is, be respectful of what government is, and then government responds. And sometimes people don't always want the government response. So understand what you're asking for, and thoughtful and detailed, and text, call, or email, and then government responds. And really grateful for everyone in the city who's able to move on a dime, really, and do everything they can to make this community better.
Yeah, we try to be very nimble to respond to people's needs, whether they're something the city can handle or not, and we'll get you plugged into those who can help you, maybe in another jurisdiction even. April, you've been doing this for a while. What do you find is the most helpful thing? If people are calling and they need help, or from your perspective of someone who's trying to connect them to the services, again, Councilman touched on this, but what has been your experience is the most valuable thing for people to communicate when you're trying to help them?
Right. I think it's more so, understanding that people want to at least be heard right away, and so to be as responsive as possible and giving them, reasonable expectations for how quickly we can work on this matter.
Right.
And if we can't work on the matter, then at least connecting them to the right resources where, they can be better served. So just setting reasonable expectations for people right from the start and hearing them out.
Yeah. April, I think that's a good point. I think that's one thing that your councilman is very good at, is listening. And to hear you say the same thing, that's great. We're going to listen to your issue and then try to figure out the best way to help you out. So we're about out of time. Anything else you'd like to add? Welcome aboard, by the way.
No, happy to serve. Thank you so much for having me, Brian.
Good to have you here. And everybody out there, hey, we're about out of time, but we always want to hear from you here. So if there's something you'd like to share with Councilman Knudsen or with April, you can find him on Facebook and Twitter. You can also contact the councilman by picking up the phone, 702-229-6405, or send him an email at bknudsen@lasvegasnevada.gov. And he or April or Dorian or Maria will get right back to you and try to work on your problem for you. So, April, congratulations. Best of luck in your new job. Maybe we'll have you come back in the future, get an update on how it's going out there. So we'll get Dorian and Maria in here too.
That'd be great.
Councilman, I'll have you back in 6 weeks with another update from Ward 1. And this is the time of year where we're getting out of the summer and getting into the fall. A lot of events coming up. There'll be a lot to talk about. So
I appreciate it. Thanks, David.
Sounds good. We'll see you next time around. And folks, don't miss our next show beginning July 28th with Ward 3 City Councilwoman Olivia Diaz. You can now catch all of our KCLV shows on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire. And don't forget to watch for our QR code during the closing credits of this show to subscribe to our newsletter. Also, you can watch us live on the internet at kclv.tv 24/7. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next time around, everyone.